Welcome to the 2021-2023 Grant Management Training Series Module 2 on Compliance. This training series was originally held in August and September of 2021. For the most recent guidance and information, please visit ODOT's Public Transportation Division's website. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your regional transit coordinator. They are always your #1 resource. Inquiries captured during the live webinars have been compiled into a comprehensive questions and answers document, which can be found on the training website.
Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Grant Management Module 2 on Compliance. My name is Arla Miller. I'm a Regional Transit Coordinator with ODOT Public Transportation Division. I have the Northwest segment of Oregon. So in compliance, our overview, we've had 75 recipients are reviewed at least every 3 to 5 years. The timing of the reviews determined by ODOT risk assessment and other factors. Some of the risk factors include amount of funds, program complexity, past grant management performance, management turnover, reporting and budget performance, and open compliance findings beyond remedy date. So you want to make sure you get your remedies done as quickly as possible. Geography can also be a factor in schedules. Like in the winter, we're not going to go out to Eastern Oregon. So since 2012, we've done 153 site reviews, and we're now in our 3rd round of reviews. So what's new? With the advent of COVID, PTD has suspended reviews for 6 months in 2020. In that time, a remote review process was developed to conduct reviews virtually. Reviews are limited to 3 hours each day, so the subrecipient can do normal work duties for a portion of each day. We've had some positive feedback on this process. We've done 18 remote reviews so far, and we're considering conducting remote reviews for 1 complete review cycle of subrecipients before returning to an on-site process. So the on-site review process, we will continue to have a philosophy of viewing compliance reviews as technical assistance to providers, not an audit, not making a judgment on the physical condition of entity before entity being reviewed. PTD takes a picture of the status of compliance and provides all the resources we have, including our consultants, to help you get into compliance following the review. No basic change is happening in the current review cycle, not necessarily more frequent now that you receive STIF funds. Still the same cycle. And remember, the clock doesn't start on remedy timeline until you receive your final report. You have 30-day remedy period actually equals 90 days from the review date. You don't have to wait for the report to get started on any remedy. Sometimes even during a review, you can get one of those findings resolved. The compliance reports are designed to give very specific guidance on remedy, where you know exactly what you need to get done to get into compliance. You will not have to research OARs or FTA circulars to know what you need to do. In many cases, such as required change in policy language, specific language will be provided to you that you can cut and paste into existing policies or policy templates, provided when a policy is absent. Advisory recommendations are given, but you don't have to necessarily do anything to address those. They're basically best practice, and our expertise from our third-party reviewers have given us some information that will help keep it better for you. So when we're doing a site review, we can be a little flexible depending on people's availability. And you can see here on the screen what the review process is. Like, we'll give you 3 to 4 months in advance notice. 30 days before your review, the consultant will email you an introduction and also what documents they're going to request and how to upload those. And it is very important that you provide the documents 7 days prior to your site review. That way the reviewers can look at your documents prior to being either on a virtual site review or in person. And that way there's no surprises after the exit conference. And the final report will be issued within 60 days. So there's 3 types of reviews. There's full direct providers, 11 topics over 2 days. So those are subrecipients of FTA and state funds that directly provide service. There are pass-through reviews. They exclude operations management, procurement, use and maintenance, or charter and school bus. These take less than a full day. And those are for agencies that get funds, but they just pass them through to somebody to do the service. Then we have the urban, small urban, that primarily focuses on state funds so as not to duplicate FTA oversight. And those are less than 1 day. The full direct provider review is program, financial, and operations management. The program management basically covers governance. The financial management covers accounting practices, internal controls, budget, and cost documentation. The operations management is staffing, scheduling, dispatch, customer service, and safety. In the procurement section, the standards of conduct, purchasing methods, cost price analysis, and bid protests, how those are all handled. Use and maintenance of equipment. They will review, the RLS will review your maintenance plans and performance of hitting compliance on those. The civil rights and Americans with Disabilities Acts, that's Title VI, limited English proficiency, equal employment opportunity, and disadvantaged business enterprises. And then we also have ADA. Charter and school bus. Charter, you receive a notice to report once a quarter, and it's very important that you do those as soon as possible. School bus, not really anybody does that. There are some tripper programs, but basically not too many people do that, like I said. Then we have some new information on STIF, which is new, especially for like the direct recipients who already get FTA reviews. Then we got the Special Transportation Fund, also known as STF. We look over administration, committee makeup by bylaws, brief review of the lower tier contractor monitoring activities. And this review will take no more than 2 days when done on site. The other types of reviews we conduct will be a subset of these topics for the pass-through and urban, small urban entities. So the pass-through provider review. In the pass-through, we don't cover operations management, procurement, use and maintenance of project equipment, or ADA. The review takes about 6 hours when done on site. You can see on screen the information that we go over. The urban, small urban review. We review the last 3 single audits and most recent FTA triennial review. And the reviewers will go over that. They'll make the financial management and ADA sections more of a check the box process. Given a review of these docs, we will have a preemptive assumption of compliance in these areas. This is about 4 to 6 hours on site. And you'll see what we go over when we're doing a virtual or on-site visit. We go over the STIF, STF, the financial management requirements for STIF funded assets, American with Disabilities Act, and monitoring of lower tier subrecipients, which is the qualified entity's responsibility. So this is data from the last 3 years. What we found in compliance issues, ADA and use maintenance and procurement are the biggest problem areas that we've seen in compliance topics. You can see that ADA, we've had 99 findings in the last 3 years. That's quite heavy. So we need to get a little bit more up to speed on that. This is the same information, just in a graph or disk form. So with ADA, what we found the most is printed public materials not available in alternative formats for the visually impaired. Best practice and what you should do is advertise availability on website and brochures. You definitely have to have on there the 711 TTY number to the brochure. If you're not familiar, that's text. In equipment use and maintenance, we found that failure to meet own preventive maintenance intervals, lack of lift maintenance procedures, lack of facility maintenance program, and failure to name ODOT as an additional insured on the insurance. That's very important since we are first security interest holder. In procurement, we found that poorly written policies, lack of recognition of federal requirements and purchasing policies, no protest procedures, and failure to include third-party clauses in lower tier contracts. So some compliance tips. American with Disabilities Act, update your passenger guides and website with required languages, such as vital documents are available in alternative formats upon request and the TTY 711 number. Equipment and preventive maintenance. You need to establish a PM tracking process. The best one is a computer process, but if you don't have that, you need to figure out some way to make sure that you're hitting that 80% mark. We do have some sample forms on our RPTD website. In procurement, use the RPTD website resources and work with the capital program coordinator on each step. And going back to the Americans with Disabilities Act, since that's been one of our highest compliance issues, we will be providing ADA training in the future. So tips for the compliance review. Upload requested documents at least 1 week prior to review date. This allows for a more organized and efficient review, save time for all. And like I said, no surprises at the exit interview or when the final report is presented. So next we'll be going into STIF compliance. So I'll go over overview, who and what is reviewed, oversight approach and review process, review content, formula fund, discretionary funds, and assets. The STIF formula fund compliance is different from special transportation formula fund oversight. The STF or statewide transportation formula is an entitlement. STIF or state transportation improvement fund is a conditional entitlement. Qualified entities, also known as QEs, are responsible for oversight of their formula fund public transportation service provider recipients, also known as PTSPs. So what's new in the STIF compliance overview? There's a revised guide for QE Formula Fund oversight of PTSP subrecipients. You can find that on our website, and it was revised as of June 21st. We did the new guide with collaboration efforts with valuable input from QEs and their subrecipients. The outcome for the new version is increased efficiency by reducing oversight duplication conducted through audits. STIF compliance oversight approach, roll the STIF into existing review processes to the extent possible. On-site compliance monitoring program, quarterly and annual report review. So PTD has always attempted to match perceived risk with the burden of compliance in designing compliance programs. Not one size fits all. We would rather see money go to service rather than perform duplicative oversight and add unnecessary administrative burden to both our subrecipients and ourselves. We strive for efficiency in the compliance process. I'll be discussing the CMP both broadly as it is new to the urban recipients and also how STIF oversight is being specifically being structured into the compliance program for all participants. So who and what is reviewed? Who is reviewed? All recipients of formula and discretionary funds. Urban and small urbans, also known as 5307, are now reviewed. And what review scope varies depending on fund type and whether recipient is already reviewed by FTA or PTD. All the small urbans and urbans have been reviewed. Their review has been completed for this first cycle. So urban and small urban review scope limited to STIF, STF, and subrecipient oversight. PTD presumes compliance with FTA financial management, procurement, and ADA since they're already reviewed by FTA in a triennial report. And we all, like I said before, we look at the latest triennial report and the last 3 single audits. All other recipients continue to receive full reviews with addition of STIF. Now, you need to remember that drug and alcohol requirements are reviewed separately. Excuse me, and they're not part of this site review. There's a whole different review process, schedule, and different pool of participants for drug and alcohol reviews. No new DNA drug and alcohol requirements for any entity as a result of STIF. It remains the same. So there's 7 subsections of the STIF review, regardless of whether you're a full provider, a pass-through entity, or small urban entity. If you are a QE, you will be reviewed on STIF compliance. So I'd like to show some level of detail of the topics covered in that section that you'll all be reviewed on. So you can see on the screen that budget and accounting, STIF advisory committees, formula fund allocations, etc. So under budgeting and accounting, we look to see if the qualified entity has submitted its budget to ODOT within 30 days of adoption, if they've established separate accounts for all 3 STIF funds as relevant, if the deposited STIF funds are in an interest-bearing account and the reported interest is sent to ODOT. And established a record retention policy consistent with Oregon requirements. So like financial records, 6 years following financial disbursement, and capital 3 years following asset disposition. The advisory committee bylaw requirements, name and person of the individual that's on the committee, number of members, and membership criteria. The first bullet, not name and person of the individuals, name and person of the committee. the number of members and membership criteria, description of the appointment process. So like say that, it's elected every 2 years or if they're rotated, terms of office and frequency of meetings, public notice procedures for all meetings, process for evaluating PTSP proposals, decision-making criteria for evaluating proposals, and definition of high percentage of low-income households. And you can find all these law requirements under OAR 732-040-00304A. Next, we have the advisory committee composition. For Indian tribes, you only need 3 members. Transportation district or county, 5 members. Mass transit district, 7 members. If you have a joint committee of 2 or more QEs, which I don't know if there's anybody in the state doing that, but based on the entities involved, it would be the minimum number that would be required for each type of QE participating in the joint committee. So say like you have a transportation district and Indian tribe, it would be the minimum for each type of QE participant in the joint committee. So that is listed in Rule 732-040-0035. So representation for all QEs except tribes, at least 1 member who is or represents low income, age 65 or older, or people with disabilities, PTSP or nonprofit entities that provide public transportation services. And remember, under mass transit or transportation districts, they must include members from within and outside its area of responsibility. You can find those rules under Rule 732-040-0035. So the formula fund sub-allocation method. We also look to see if the QE work collaboratively with PTSPs and other potential subrecipients to develop the method. And is the method proportionate to revenue generated within geographic territory of each PTSP to the extent possible using best available data? You can find more information under OAR 732-042-00103D. So the plan requirements. For each project, you have to have a project description, project budget by category and activity detail, whether it will improve, expand, or maintain service, rationale proposing to maintain an existing service, anticipated benefits and measurable outcomes, the budget allocated to each of the 7 benefits areas, and consistency with the Oregon Public Transportation Plan, also known as the OPTP. There are more requirements than this. This is just highlighting a few of them. Each project proposed for funding must be described in the STIF plan. The plan must include the following elements to constitute a complete description. Does the plan include for each project 3 descriptive items? Review of project description in the STIF plan will be performed during the desk review prior to the consultants coming on site or joining you virtually. So with STIF reporting, were all reporting requirements met? So the financial audits, 30 days after receipt, the QE's adopted budget, 30 days after adoption, QE's written agreement for joint management, 30 days after adoption, written agreement with subrecipients, 30 days after execution, Provision information to ODOT if PTAC recommends rejection of STIF plan 30 days after notice. We have not had any that I know of that have been rejected. Capital asset reports are done quarterly, and quarterly reports for first through third quarters, 45 days after the end of each quarter, and the fourth quarter, 60 days. We review all these to see if everything's been submitted timely and completely. So with the discretionary funds, we evaluate the match. So say that this last cycle where the agreements just went out, we weren't able to do the 10% match because of we had so many applications, but they will review to see if you had the 10% reduced match rate and if you met the 4 conditions for the reduced match rate, which can be found listed 4-54A. And we also check to see if the funds provided for match was an eligible source. Farebox revenue cannot be used as a source of match, and capital assets can only be used on one single project only once. So capital asset requirements, asset inventories, all elements for assets and vehicles are listed in the field guide and in OAR 732-042-00402. Asset maintenance, the maintenance plan for assets such as vehicle or facility, and it can be combined. Maintenance intervals and plans to at least manufacturer recommendations. So you can vary from manufacturer recommendations. Say you've got a lot of hill climbing or a lot of rough road, lots of dust and dirt. You can change that, but make sure your plan has the changes in it. Maintenance performance has to be 80% on time for vehicle and facility. So it can be plus or minus 10% either way. So resources by provider type, direct provider compliance field guide, pass-through compliance field guide, small urban compliance field guide, and STIF formula qualified entity subrecipient oversight guide are all located here on our website. It would be a good idea if you you have a site review coming up to go ahead and read through the compliance field guide that would fit your instance.